it just sounded so far-fetched, you know? I mean, they all came running in. Peter, of course it was Peter. He's at the front of the pack, and they're saying, Thomas, he's back. I didn't need to ask who. They were so frantic, there wasn't really anyone else it could have been. And they started telling me about how they were upstairs, the doors were locked, and all of a sudden he appears in front of them. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, well, can you blame me for being skeptical? I mean, we were all there on Friday. Like, we saw what they did to him. There's no, you don't just come back from something like that. Like, I barely even recognized him. So I started asking questions. You know, who was all there? What did each of them see? Because some of them might not have had a clear view. Was it dark? Were there any windows? Are they sure that all the doors were closed? Because one might have been, you know, slightly open. Like, I knew that they believed what they had seen, but just why didn't, I guess that was it, right? Like, why didn't I get to see him? Or why didn't he come to see me? Had I done something wrong? I mean, the rest of them ran away when he got arrested, same as me. I was no worse than they were, but they got to see him. Or maybe they just thought they did. So that's what I told them. You know, I made a simple request, thought it'd be fair. I had to touch the marks in his hands. That's fair. If this was real, if he was really back, then he'd come to see me. And they tried, you know, talking to me and reminding me of the things that Jesus had said and the different experiences that we'd had that I'd seen, but I put my foot down because it had to be fair. If Jesus was really back, then he'd come and see me. I deserved. One day goes by, no Jesus. 2 days, 3 days. I guess I was like expecting that he was gonna show up at breakfast or something like that. I wasn't really sure why I was sticking around. I mean, the story was over, he was gone. There was no reason for us to be sticking together anymore. I don't know, something kept me in town. 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. They were all so convinced that they'd really seen him, but he still hadn't come to see me. Day 7, we'd heard that the Romans were looking around for anyone connected to Jesus, so John found a room upstairs. We all went up there, locked the doors to hunker down until morning. And then all of a sudden, there he was. You know, if someone had seen me in the days leading up to that, I think they would have said that I was hopeless, because I wasn't budging. Like, I wasn't going to believe until I saw him. But in that moment, I realized that there had been a sliver of hope that I was holding on to. I just refused to let it go. I was so desperate to see him one more time, but I couldn't bring myself to believe until that moment. He really let me have it. He gave me that grin. You'd know it if you knew him. And he told me to put my hands in the marks. I couldn't even do it. I fell to my knees and I started crying. I mean, he was back. Like, he'd come back for me. And he said something to me that I'll never forget once I got myself together. He said, Thomas, because you've seen me, you've believed. But the ones who haven't seen me and still believe, those are the blessed ones. And I know that might sound sketchy to some people, but I actually get it, because I had spent 7 days denying myself of hope. You know, for 7 days while my friends were celebrating and planning and living like their lives really meant something, I kept my heart pinned down because I guess I didn't want to get hurt. Jesus wasn't telling me that I should have just pulled the wool over my eyes and accepted what they said. He was telling me that I shouldn't have squashed my own hope. I don't know, I guess I let my hurt steer my trust instead of my heart. I let my hurt steer my trust instead of my heart. I guess the one thing that I'm most thankful for through all of that is that I stuck around. I mean, I didn't want to. I wanted to get out of there. All I could think about was what we'd seen up on that hill and what they said they'd seen 3 days later. But I stuck around. And Jesus showed up. He was the hope that I was afraid to have, and now I don't think I could ever be afraid again.